Now there's something that happens in Skyrim. Actually, you know what? It doesn't really happen to me, and that's the whole point of this video, but I know what happens. Now hear me out and tell me, has this ever happened to you? You show up to a bandit camp, you destroy everyone, you loot everything, you don't really buy anything, you set mammoths on fire, then you snack on his savory carcass while collecting your spoils. You don't do this, you actually don't buy stuff. You and your homies fight over whether or not to heat or cool gargoyles. You kill giants, you jump off of cliffs. Hey guys, we're not actually eating these, so it doesn't matter how hot they get. You loot all the stuff out of the dragon, which is actually your inventory because you needed to do it for the video to make it look like there was a bunch of stuff in his body. Yeah, it says cook them at 400 for 20 minutes, so this is gonna take a while. But it's worth it. Once they're dead, they'll have a lot of good stuff. I mean, sometimes you want money so bad you'll push your teammates out of the way. You know, this is probably like 46 gold altogether, so this is actually kind of sad. Okay, I'm having way too much fun with this intro. I actually do have something to talk about. I'll get to my point now. What do you do with the sometimes ridiculous amount of money you get in Skyrim, especially late game when you are just balling? Like, what are you supposed to do with all that money? Now, given the highly customizable nature of Skyrim and modding, I can't really make a video that's gonna go point for point and give you a formula to solve excess of money that you might have going on. What I'm just gonna do instead is maybe rattle off a completely randomly disorganized assortment of things that I did, because I've had characters making like the 150K range, and I've never really had an issue of spending money, so maybe you can use or build on some of these ideas for your own game and make money in Skyrim actually a part of the gameplay. You know, just give you that Justin Timberlake experience, so. Trade and Barter is probably the most useful mod in all of this. Unfortunately, it isn't available for a special edition yet. I say yet because I think the author is actually trying to convert it to special edition. Another one would be investment price config. It is available on SSE, but it was not converted by the original author, so I can't vouch for how well it works, but it is available on both editions. And then surprise, test 5 edit. What you should already be using anyway, right? Now, fundamentally, and I could be dead wrong, this is just my opinion, I think the problem most people run into in ending up with too much money against Skyrim is you don't have enough needs. What I mean by that is like the core game or vanilla or like the original game design, in my opinion, never really gives you a reason to spend money on anything relevant. So if your character doesn't get hungry and the food you buy literally does nothing for you, why buy it? And it's like 20 septims anyway. Another thing to consider, your game may not even be hard enough to warrant needing to spend that much money in the first place. So for instance, now if you don't like playing with followers, this really isn't relevant to you, but if you do, but hiring, let's say 2 followers results in you guys just running through everybody, no problem. The game's gonna get boring and you're not really gonna wanna hire followers. Furthermore, if followers aren't that expensive or there isn't any kind of reoccurring cost, you'll just be hanging with the same group of people forever, not really doing anything with the money you guys are all amassing. And again, that can contribute to you being a trillionaire by the time your game's over. So I guess what I'm getting at, or what I'm trying to get you to think about if you are having the issue of just having too much money and nothing to spend it on, is to try and think of other gameplay aspects as having an influence on whether or not you'll need to use money. So a mod like Immersive Jewelry and Winter Mist or Summer Mist may not seem like they have a direct influence on the economy, but when you consider both of those both of those mods add so many different items to the world, you may actually find shopping at a vendor useful because they have items that you're having a hard time looting, or you just want it earlier than you can find it. And you can even do things like edit shops, inventories, and test v-edit so that, you know, these items are available earlier. Now you may know this, but one of the most basic things I would recommend doing is changing the F-barter max and min. And if you're not familiar with this setting, think of this kind of like a difficulty slider. In the same way that on Legendary you do really terrible damage while enemies do crazy damage, the higher you set both of these settings, the less you're gonna get back for selling things and the more it's gonna be to buy stuff. And you can think of the min and black setting, wow, min and max setting as barriers. So it will never drop below 1.4 and it will never go above 6.1, and you'll have prices fluctuating in between those variables. This is a pretty generous setting. This is kind of, I would say, close to vanilla, maybe not, but you would find yourself getting good prices back for the things you sell, and then stuff that you would buy could be expensive, but maybe not. Now, it can take a little bit of getting used to if you crank these settings up really high, so just be cautious if you've never really messed with something like this before. And for perspective, anything above like 6 for F-Barter minimum is starting to get into the high range. Right now in my game, I think the minimum is 7, and I have an 18k item that sells for 2k. At a pretty low speechcraft. Dang, sounds super nerdy. At a pretty low speechcraft rating. Anyways, all sorts of great options in this mod. One more thing I want to mention. I try and change these every new playthrough, and I try not to center them around the vendors that I frequent. Just another little thing that'll keep you from turning into a baby Bill Gates. Just, yeah, useful menu. Okay, bear with me. Like I said, it's going to get a little more random the longer this video goes on. In Skytweak, you can adjust the rate at which skills gain experience. Now, this may not work for every character you play, but you can use Skytweak to change the rate at which you gain experience in certain skills. Also, you can change how expensive it is to train at a trainer and how high they can train you. So you could have a character that needs to make a lot of money to level up. And of course, you can always change it if it's too extreme or whatever. That's all. With investment price config, you can also tremendously jack up the price of hiring followers and purchasing horses if for some reason your horse is getting murdered all the time. In addition to making homes as outrageously priced as you like. Now, having stuff be too expensive can cause just as many problems as having too much money. Something I did was make scrolls extremely powerful to justify some of the outrageous costs, but also, if you decide to do this, make sure you're giving yourself ways to make a lot of money very quickly or make a lot of money at once. For example, and I have done this, you can edit in Test 5 Edit or even in the Skyrim console, the amount of money you get for, let's say, mining ore, giving wood, mining ebony, mining gold, and so on, and giving it to the people who ask. And I mean, if you really want to go full Shenmue, you can even use something like Complete Crafting Overhaul and change the amount of strikes it takes to mine, so mine is really time consuming. I mean, it's your life. I won't judge you. You can add to that a mod like Missives or Bounty Gold, which lets you adjust the amount of money you get from all the bounty contracts. But the point is, a lot of this can alleviate some of the struggles you end up with early game, as well as giving you an ability to make a lot of money, since you'll be spending a lot, presumably. Listen, 2 things I ain't ashamed of: Jesus and goofy custom Skyrim rules. Listen, sadly, there's not enough mods to make this problem reconcilable, so you do, in my opinion, have to resort to some self-policing. And you know what, speaking personally, this is my favorite thing on the Skyrim mods forums. Whenever we get these threads going, I love seeing people's goofy responses. My all-time favorite is no cats in cities rule. So what I came up with for my game was, I have a mod called Populated Cities 2, which actually adds somewhat formidable NPCs, so I use that in conjunction with AFT's ability to turn anybody into a follower. And the rates to hire them is kind of based around their power level, so for instance, a priest is 5k every 7 days, adventurers are 2k, veterans 4k, and then for followers that don't have a cost, they just take 50% of whatever I made during that outing. It sucks having to get the calculator out to figure out how much I owe them, and keeping it 100 definitely had my wife look over and chuckle every now and then. But you knew you knew what you were getting into, right? When you said I do, you know this is a part of the package.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe not to this extent, but what a pleasant surprise.
That's great. So another thing, I haven't found a mod that does this, but I always thought it was weird that you could just walk into a mine and start mining, you know, outside of selling it to the mine owners. And I haven't quite figured out a way to work this out practically, but if I do use a mine that I don't plan on selling the ore back to them, I'll charge myself like 1,000 septims, or I'll try and base it on the value of the ore that I'm mining. Now what's nice is that between Complete Crafting Overhaul, letting you customize how much ore you get from mining, some other mods increasing the weight of ore, and then I did some editing to the weight of ore in Test 5 Edit myself. What's nice is it keeps you from wiping mines out. You know, in vanilla, you can go through a mine and then clear the whole mine out, not get a whole lot of ore, and then you can't use that mine for a little bit. Additionally, a mod like Cobb's Encumbrance allows you to set different variables around how much weight you're carrying, including dying, which admittedly makes no sense. But all this stuff overall contributes to helping you kind of organically solve the too much money, too much stuff problem, and it also gives you a way to continue to be able to use mines to make money without wiping the whole mine out. Let me just give you this last one here, and this one's for free. Your Barter settings are great, you know, they're a good baseline, but sometimes you just need to edit things and test 5 edit yourself. Spellbooks is a really big one in my opinion, and if you use a needs mod, food is as well. You know, maybe a better way to put it, the biggest positive that comes from kind of raising the baseline of all your prices and then working on other individual prices, it just keeps the economy from being passive. Now, certainly you can go too far in the other direction, but you know what? It's trial and error. You'll figure it out with your game if you're having this problem and working to correct it, but it's worth it in the end. Now, if you've had this problem, please post in the comments what you did to solve it if you did something. You know, at this point, nothing is too nerdy. Okay, so post in the comments what you did, especially if you use Special Edition, because a lot of the mods I mentioned and some of the ones I didn't aren't actually on Special Edition, so it would probably benefit some of the people watching this who use SSD. Really, the only thing I would say, like, everyone should do is your Barter settings, because that sets a baseline for everything, all your prices, and then you can adjust from there. And Trade and Barter is just a great mod in general. Test 5 Edit is a great tool, so please use it. Or do what you want. Other than that, just try and think of non-economic mods as having an influence on the economy, or like trying to work them into your economy. That would be another thing that I would say is really important. But yeah, post in the comments what you did, and other than that, I love you guys. Seriously, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful